Charlotte Bennett had spent 16 years of her life trying to be the daughter. Her parents, Gregory and Lorraine, wanted her to be. She had followed the rules, earned good grades, and kept her head down whenever her father's temper flared or her mother's sharp words cut through her confidence. But no matter how much she tried, she was never enough. Her older sister, Helena, was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Charlotte, on the other hand, was the constant disappointment. The trip to visit Helena at college had been routine, the same as it always was. Gregory spent most of the drive in silence, occasionally grumbling about work or criticizing the way Charlotte slouched in the passenger seat. Lorraine, meanwhile, offered backhanded compliments to Helena, turning to Charlotte only to remind her how much she paled in comparison. Charlotte had long since learned to tune them out, letting the music from her headphones drown their voices. It was supposed to be an uneventful drive back home, but everything changed the moment her father pulled into the parking lot of an old train station off the highway. "Go grab me a soda," Gregory said, not even bothering to look at her. Charlotte hesitated, pulling her headphones down. "What?" Her mother turned in her seat and smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was forced, practiced. "Your father asked for a drink, honey, and grab me a water while you're at it." Charlotte sighed, used to being treated like an errand girl. She pushed the car door open and stepped out into the humid Alabama air. The heat was suffocating, clinging to her skin as she walked toward the vending machines. Fishing a crumpled $5 bill from her pocket, she fed it into the slot and punched the buttons for their drinks. The old machine groaned in protest before spitting out a lukewarm soda and a bottle of water. As she turned, bottles in hand, her stomach clenched. The car was gone. For a moment, her brain refused to register what she was seeing, or rather, what she wasn't seeing. The parking lot, cracked and littered with weeds, was empty. No sign of her father's car, no sign of her parents. A buzzing noise broke through the stunned silence. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from her mother. "Let's see how long it takes you to get home. Consider this a lesson in problem solving." Charlotte's breath hitched. Her fingers trembled as she hit the call button. Straight to voicemail. She tried again, and again. Each time the same hollow beep echoed in her ear. This wasn't a mistake, this wasn't a joke. They had left her. A sharp wind swept through the lot, kicking up dust as Charlotte stood frozen, gripping the soda so tightly that the plastic crinkled beneath her fingers. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the distant sound of a train horn. They weren't coming back. The realization should have devastated her. It should have sent her spiraling into panic. But instead, a strange calm settled over her. This wasn't the first time they had done something like this. When she was 13, they had locked her outside during a thunderstorm because she forgot to take the trash out. At 14, they made her walk 6 miles home from school in the rain because she had missed the bus. It was always a lesson, always a test, but this time it was different. This time she wasn't going back. She glanced around the station. A handful of people moved about, oblivious to the 16-year-old girl standing there with nothing but her wallet and a growing sense of fury. She pulled her phone out again and checked her savings, $140 from her summer job. Not much, but enough. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the ticket counter inside the small station. An old man sat behind the glass, barely looking up as she approached. "Where's the nearest bus station?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. He pointed down the road. "Couple miles that way." Charlotte nodded and turned on her heel, already moving. Her phone buzzed again, another text from her mother. "Don't you dare call your Aunt Eleanor. Your father says you need to figure this out on your own." She stared at the words for a moment before blocking the number. Then she did exactly what they told her not to do. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Charlotte?" Eleanor's voice was sharp with concern. "What's wrong?" Charlotte swallowed hard. "Can you help me?" Her voice was calm, but inside she was crumbling. A pause, then a sharp intake of breath. "Where are you?" Charlotte's grip on the phone tightened. "They left me," she whispered. "They just drove away." Silence stretched between them. Then Eleanor's voice came through, firm and unwavering. "Stay right there, sweetheart. I'm coming to get you." Charlotte exhaled shakily, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She was 16 years old, stranded at a train station with no home to return to. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't waiting for them. She wasn't playing their game. She was done. The city lights stretched endlessly before Charlotte as she stood by the window of her tiny studio apartment. The glass reflected back a different version of herself, one that had learned how to survive without the family that abandoned her. It had been nearly 2 decades since that night at the train station, but the memories remained sharp, etched into her mind like scars she had long stopped trying to erase. She had been 16 when she called her Aunt Eleanor, and within an hour her aunt had arrived at the train station, eyes filled with a mixture of worry and fury. Charlotte still remembered the way Eleanor had pulled her into a tight embrace, whispering, "You're safe now," as if those words alone could mend everything that had been broken. But safety was just the beginning. For the first time in her life, Charlotte was in a home where she wasn't treated like a burden. Eleanor and her husband, James, welcomed her without question, without guilt, without conditions. But Charlotte knew this wasn't a fairy tale. She couldn't just pretend her past didn't exist. Her parents had abandoned her, and she needed to figure out how to stand on her own 2 feet. Within days of moving in with Eleanor, she started planning her next steps. She had always been independent, always resourceful. That much she had learned from growing up in a household where love was conditional. The first step was getting a job. Eleanor had offered financial help, but Charlotte refused to rely on anyone, not even the one person who had saved her. So she walked into a local diner, chin high, and asked for work. The manager, a kind-eyed woman named Martha, took one look at her and handed her an apron. "You work hard, you get hours," Martha had said. "No handouts here." Charlotte had nodded. "That's all I ask." And she had worked hard. She took every shift available, bussing tables, washing dishes, wiping down counters, until her arms ached. The exhaustion was welcome. It kept her mind from wandering, from thinking about the family that had left her behind. She balanced work with school, pushing herself to keep up with her studies. Every morning, she woke before sunrise, attended her classes, then headed straight to the diner. By the time she collapsed into bed at night, her muscles ached, but she felt something she had never felt before: control. The years passed in a blur of hard work and quiet victories. She graduated high school with honors, despite the odds stacked against her. When her classmates celebrated with family, she stood beside Eleanor, knowing that was enough. College had been a battle of its own. With limited financial aid and a part-time job that barely covered tuition, Charlotte learned to live on the bare minimum. She slept in a tiny off-campus apartment with peeling wallpaper and a draft that made winters unbearable. She rationed food, sometimes stretching a single meal over 2 days. But she never complained, because this was hers. Every dollar earned, every class completed, every late-night study session, it all belonged to her. When she wasn't working, she was learning. She devoured business books, absorbed financial literacy podcasts, and studied the art of building something from nothing. She refused to be another statistic, another girl discarded by a family who saw her as unworthy. And then she built Haven Developments. The real estate company had started as a simple project, an idea formed during her senior year of college when she interned at a local property firm. She had watched as companies bought rundown buildings, renovated them, and sold them for profit. It fascinated her, the idea of turning something neglected into something valuable. It mirrored her own journey. By the time she graduated, she had saved just enough to take a risk. She bought a small, worn-down duplex in a struggling neighborhood. It was all she could afford, and people told her she was foolish for even trying. But she didn't care. She worked tirelessly, fixing what she could with her own hands, learning everything from plumbing to drywall repair through late-night YouTube tutorials. Every spare dollar went back into the project. And then she sold it for double what she had paid. That was the moment everything changed. Charlotte reinvested every cent into her next project. Then another, and another. Slowly, Haven Developments grew. Now standing in her corner office, overlooking the Austin skyline, she knew she had won. Not against her parents. She had long stopped needing their validation. She had won against circumstance, against expectations, against the idea that she was nothing without the family that abandoned her. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. 39 missed calls. She didn't recognize most of the numbers, but one name stood out among them: Helena, her older sister, a name she hadn't seen in 2 decades. Charlotte stared at the screen, her heartbeat steady, her breath even. Then she pressed play on the first voicemail. "Charlotte, please pick up. Mom and Dad found you. They need your help." Charlotte exhaled sharply, setting the phone down before she could smash it against the desk. They had found her. She already knew what that meant. For 20 years, they had lived their lives without her, never searching, never caring. Now suddenly they needed her. Charlotte looked around the office she had built, at the company that bore her blood, sweat, and sacrifice. She had left them behind with nothing, and now they wanted back in. Charlotte sat at her desk, the glow of the Austin skyline illuminating the sleek glass walls of her office. The weight of her phone pressed against her palm as she stared at the voicemail transcript, her sister Helena's words running over and over in her mind. "Mom and Dad found you. They need your help." For 20 years, she had lived without them. For 20 years, they had been nothing but ghosts. Until now. She had expected this day to come. She had worked too hard, built too much for them to ignore her forever. It wasn't love that had driven them back to her doorstep. It wasn't regret. It was need. And that made her furious. She had spent the first half of her life trying to prove her worth to people who had decided she was disposable. And when they had abandoned her at a train station, when they had left her with nothing, she had rebuilt herself from the ground up. And now they wanted a piece of what she had built. She tapped her fingers against her desk, inhaling deeply, before pressing play on the next voicemail. Helena's voice cracked through the speaker. "Charlotte, please, just hear me out. Things are bad, really bad. Dad's lost a lot of money gambling, and Mom, she's been drowning in debt for years. The house is in foreclosure. They don't know what to do. They need help, and I'm the only one who's still talking to them." Charlotte's jaw clenched. Of course it was about money. It wasn't surprising. Her father, Kenneth, had always been reckless with finances, believing himself too smart to ever truly lose. And her mother, Elaine, had lived in denial, pretending everything was fine even when their world crumbled around them. They had always been proud, too proud to ask for help. But now, when there was no other way out, when they were desperate. Suddenly, Charlotte, the daughter they had cast aside, was their only option. She let out a slow breath, her pulse steady as she clicked on the last voicemail. Helena's voice was barely above a whisper. "Abby." Charlotte stiffened. No one had called her that name in years. "I know they hurt you. I know they don't deserve anything from you. But they're our parents, and they're losing everything. They have nothing, Charlotte, nothing. If you don't help them, I don't know what's going to happen to them." The voicemail ended. Charlotte sat in silence. Helena didn't ask how she had survived, didn't ask how Charlotte had managed to claw her way out of the pit they had thrown her into, didn't ask if she was okay after being discarded like an afterthought. Number. The only thing that mattered was their parents. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the skyline, her mind already sorting through the situation like it was just another business problem to be solved. She could ignore it, block the number, move on. But she knew that wasn't how this would end. They weren't going to stop. Her parents had spent their whole lives taken, leeching off anyone willing to sacrifice for them. And if they couldn't manipulate her directly, they would use Helena. And that was what made her angriest of all, because Helena had always been the obedient one, the one who played along, the one who stayed. And now she was being used as a pawn in a game Charlotte had already won. A sharp knock at her office door pulled her from her thoughts. Her assistant, Jenny, stepped inside, hesitation written all over her face. "Charlotte," she said carefully, "I think you should see this." Charlotte frowned, motioning for her to continue. Jenny walked forward, holding up her phone. The screen displayed a Facebook post. Charlotte's breath caught in her throat as she scanned the words. "Our daughter abandoned us in our old age after everything we sacrificed for her." Below it, another post. "We raised her to be strong, and this is how she repays us, heartless." Her stomach twisted. It was public. They were turning the narrative against her, and people were falling for it. Comments flooded the posts. "I can't believe some kids treat their parents like this. What a disgrace." "Ungrateful brat. I hope she rots alone." "Money changes people." Shame on her. Charlotte's grip on her desk tightened. This wasn't just a guilt trip. This was an attack. "They're trying to ruin your reputation," Jenny murmured. "It's spreading fast. Some people are even leaving bad reviews on Haven Development's business page." Charlotte inhaled sharply, forcing herself to remain composed. Her parents weren't just asking for help. They were demanding it. And when she didn't comply, they decided to destroy her. She exhaled slowly, a dangerous calm settling over her. Jenny shifted uncomfortably. "What do you want to do?" Charlotte straightened her shoulders. "I want you to schedule a meeting with my lawyer," she said coolly, "and then I want you to draft a response." Jenny hesitated. "A public response?" Charlotte's eyes darkened. "They want to fight?" She leaned forward. "Then let's give them one." Charlotte sat at the conference table, the weight of the legal documents spread before her. The silence in the room was thick, heavy with unspoken tension. Across from her, her attorney, David Lancaster, flipped through the pages of the lawsuit filed against her. His expression remained neutral, but Charlotte could see the slight furrow in his brow, the only tell that he was already calculating their next move. "They really went through with it," he muttered, setting the papers down. Charlotte let out a slow exhale, her fingers tightening around the pen in her hand. Of course they did. Kenneth and Elaine Holloway were nothing if not relentless. When manipulation failed, when public shaming didn't work, they had resorted to this, a legal claim, under filial responsibility laws. They were demanding financial support, claiming that, as their daughter, she was legally obligated to care for them in their old age. Charlotte clenched her jaw. These were the same people who had abandoned her at a train station when she was 16, who had left her with nothing, who hadn't reached out once in 20 years, and now they had the audacity to demand she owed them something. David slid the lawsuit across the table. "Texas doesn't have strong filial responsibility laws, but they're banking on public pressure. If they stir up enough noise, drag this out in court, they might force a settlement." Charlotte scoffed. "Then they don't know me at all." David smirked. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." He leaned forward, lacing his fingers together. "Here's how we play this. First, we move to dismiss. Their claim is weak at best, and they have no financial records proving they ever supported you past childhood." Charlotte nodded. "Second," David continued, "we countersue for defamation. The social media posts, the false allegations, they've publicly slandered you. We'll subpoena financial records, bank statements, and correspondence, proving they haven't had any contact with you in decades." Charlotte's lips curled into a small, sharp smile. "And third," David's eyes gleamed, "third, we expose them." She sat back, considering his words. The thought of dragging this into the public eye made her stomach twist. She had spent years keeping her past locked away, refusing to let it define her. But they had made this public. They had spread lies, twisted reality, painted her as an ungrateful, heartless daughter who abandoned her suffering parents. If they wanted the truth, she would give it to them. Charlotte tapped her nails against the table, her mind already moving ahead. "I want a press statement. We control the narrative. I won't let them spin this any further." David grinned. "Now that's what I like to hear." Within 24 hours, the lawsuit was everywhere. News outlets picked up the story. Online debates exploded. Social media was flooded with comments, some condemning Charlotte, others defending her. But then Charlotte released her statement. She didn't hold back. She told the truth. She spoke about how her parents had abandoned her at 16, leaving her alone at a train station with nothing but the clothes on her back. She recounted the years of neglect, the emotional manipulation, the way they had resurfaced only when they needed something. She attached receipts, documents proving they had never supported her financially after she left, proof of their gambling debts, their failed businesses, their pattern of exploiting others for personal gain, and the tide shifted. The same people who had called her ungrateful now turned on them. They left their daughter at a train station and now they expect her to support them. This is beyond disgusting. The entitlement is unreal. They abandoned her and now they want a payout. The nerve of these people. It wasn't just public opinion that turned against them. Their legal case fell apart, too. David called Charlotte 2 days later, amusement lacing his voice. Kenneth and Elaine just withdrew their lawsuit. Charlotte smirked. They realized they couldn't win? Charlotte smirked. They realized they couldn't win. Oh, they realized a lot of things, David said. They're panicking. Turns out a few creditors saw the news and are now demanding payment on their outstanding debts. And guess what? Their house, gone. Repossessed. Charlotte let out a slow breath, her shoulders easing for the first time in weeks. Her parents had tried to take her down, but in the end, they had only destroyed themselves. 3 nights later, she got the call. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Silence, then her mother's voice. Charlotte. Cold, small. Nothing like the woman who had once looked her in the eye and told her she was a burden. Charlotte said nothing. You won, Elaine continued, voice brittle. Are you happy now? You've ruined us. Charlotte closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. No, they had ruined themselves. She waited, and then came the real reason for the call. We have nowhere to go, Elaine whispered. Kenneth is drinking more than ever. We need help, Charlotte, please. A lump formed in Charlotte's throat. For a brief, fleeting moment, the 16-year-old inside her wanted to care, wanted to believe this was real, that they had changed, that this wasn't just another ploy. But she knew better. Still, she couldn't ignore the thought that gnawed at the edges of her mind. She wasn't them. She would never be them. You need help, she said evenly. Then go to rehab, get real jobs, fix your own mistakes. Elaine let out a shaky breath. We don't have time for that. A pause, then, we need money. There it was. Charlotte's expression hardened. And there it is. Elaine didn't even try to deny it. Just enough to get back on our feet, she pushed. We're your parents, Charlotte. You owe us at least that. Charlotte let out a dry, humorless laugh. She didn't owe them a damn thing, but she did owe herself closure. Fine, she said finally. Silence. Elaine gasped. Really? Yes, Charlotte said. I'll wire you $5,000, that's it. That's the only help you'll ever get from me. And after this, I never want to hear from you again. Her mother sucked in a breath, but before she could speak, Charlotte cut her off. You will not contact me. You will not use Helena against me. You will not try this again. If you do, I will make sure you never get another dime from anyone ever again. Do you understand? A pause, then yes. Charlotte hung up, and for the first time in 20 years, she was free. Charlotte sat on the balcony of her penthouse, the cool evening breeze brushing against her skin as she sipped from a glass of wine. The city skyline stretched before her, glittering like a sea of lights. It was peaceful, silent. For the first time in 20 years, she wasn't weighed down by the past. It was over. The lawsuit had been dismissed. The public had turned against her parents, and her name had been cleared. They had tried everything: manipulation, public humiliation, legal pressure, only to watch it all collapse around them. They had lost their home, their finances were in shambles, and their so-called reputation was ruined. And Charlotte, she was still standing, stronger than ever. Her phone vibrated on the table beside her, a message from her lawyer, David. Settlement finalized, they accepted the $5,000, no further claims, it's done. Charlotte exhaled slowly, a smirk playing on her lips. She had predicted this. Her parents were too desperate to keep fighting. When she had agreed to send them money, it hadn't been out of guilt. It had been strategy. $5,000 was nothing to her, but to them. It was their last lifeline, and now they had signed away any future claim they thought they had over her. They were finally out of her life, for good. She picked up her phone, scrolling past the dozens of news articles that had once smeared her name. The narrative had changed. People knew the truth now. Her parents were no longer seen as the victims. She was. The abandoned daughter, the survivor, the woman who had built a multi-million-dollar company without them. The comments reflected the shift. She was right to cut them off. No child owes their parents anything if they were never actually parents to begin with. The audacity of these people trying to destroy their own daughter just for money. Charlotte didn't need validation. She had never cared about public opinion, but seeing strangers defend her, seeing people finally understand, it felt good. She set her phone down and leaned back in her chair, letting the reality sink in. She was free. No more legal battles, no more sudden phone calls, no more guilt. For so many years, she had lived with that invisible chain around her neck, the fear that one day they'd come back, that they'd demand something from her, force their way back into her life. That fear no longer existed. They had played their last card and lost. Her thoughts were interrupted by another notification. This time, a text from Helena. "Dinner this weekend? I miss you." A genuine smile formed on Charlotte's lips. Helena was the only family she had ever truly cared about. The aunt who had saved her all those years ago, who had taken her in when she was just a terrified 16-year-old girl with nowhere to go. Charlotte quickly typed a response. "Saturday night, my treat, Mexican food and extra margaritas." A reply came almost instantly. "Now, that's what I like to hear." Charlotte chuckled, warmth filling her chest. She had never been alone. Her parents had tried to convince her she was worthless, that she would never survive without them. They had been wrong. She had thrived. A future without fear. She stood from her chair, walking inside and setting her wine glass on the counter. As she moved through her penthouse, she glanced around. Her home, her success, her life. Everything she had built, she had done on her own. She reached for a small photo frame on the bookshelf, a picture of herself at 18 standing beside Helena on her college graduation day. She barely recognized the girl in the photo. That girl had still been afraid, still worried that her parents would come back, that they'd find a way to pull her down. That girl was gone. She took a deep breath, grabbed her phone, and scrolled through her contacts until she found two names: Kenneth Holloway, Elaine Holloway. Her fingers hovered for a second before she made her final move. Block. Block. No more second chances. No more what ifs. No more looking back. This was her story now. A story of survival, of resilience, of a woman who had refused to be destroyed. Charlotte had not lost her parents. She had escaped them. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. Charlotte's story is more than just a battle against toxic family ties. It's a testament to resilience, self-worth, and the power of choosing yourself. She refused to be held captive by the past, refused to let guilt dictate her future, and ultimately proved that family is not defined by blood, but by love and respect. This journey teaches us invaluable lessons. You don't owe anyone your suffering. No child should feel obligated to support parents who abandon them. Love and respect must be earned, not demanded. Financial independence is your power. Charlotte's ability to stand her ground came from her self-sufficiency. Never let anyone have control over your finances. It's the key to true freedom. Setting boundaries is not cruel. It's necessary. Toxic people will always try to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Don't let them. The best revenge is success. Walking away with your dignity, happiness, and future intact is the greatest victory of all. If this story inspired you, subscribe to our channel for more empowering and thought-provoking content. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications because there's so much more to come. Your support means everything.